I think the draft's going to be a good option for us. There's a lot of guys in the draft that we like at a lot of different levels. And, I'm confident between now and the time that the season starts that, we're going to have something that we believe in and a plan that's going to help us.
What's your excitement level getting Stephon Diggs?
Well, Stephon brings an energy to him. I think that it's fun to coach players like that, and guys that have a confidence to them, that understand the game of football, that have been around, that has developed. This isn't like a first round draft pick. Stephon went later in the draft and continued to improve and has done that. Has been productive each and every year. But I love his energy. I love our conversation so far, and looking forward to getting him back there and helping him recover from the surgery.
Back to that question that Karen asked about left tackle. What about in the draft, in the early portion of the draft, with Will Campbell? I know that you guys have met with him a little bit, and also Membo. What do you think of those two prospects specifically?
Well, I think they're great, young, talented players that have great film. Will's got a lot of snaps at left tackle. Membu's played right, but there's a lot of guys that have played right and left and switched. So, those are two good young players to talk about in that conversation. But there's others throughout the draft as well.
Do you view Will as a left tackle prospect?
Yeah, I think you have to. I don't understand how you could watch him play in the SEC, which is the best conference in college football, against guys that are going to get drafted at that position. So I don't think you have to project it. You can just actually watch and say there's the snaps at left tackle, evaluate it, see what you think.
Would you be open to trading back at 4, or are you kind of?
I think we'd be open to everything. I think we'd be open to everything that we felt like could help the football team. I think that's what we have to do. Whether that's stick and pick a player, or if somebody has an offer for us, I think we'd be willing to listen. But there's a lot of options that we have to consider that could help the team.
When we last spoke to you, you mentioned that there's a little bit of uncertainty at the top right now. Do you feel like you have a clear picture of how picks 1 through 3 might go ahead
Nope.
of you?
Do you have any idea? You tell me. You tell me goes who 1, 2, and 3, and I'll tell you who goes 4.
Mike, you spent time playing both ways, obviously, in the NFL. You were able to do it, but not to the degree that Travis Hunter has done in college. So how difficult is it for him at the NFL level to play both ways, the same volume, the same productivity, or do you have to evaluate him as just a corner, just a wide receiver?
I don't know how anybody could say how hard it would be. We've never seen a player, necessarily do it. I think that there are some things that he can improve on by, probably concentrating on more than or just on one position, but never going to put any restrictions on Travis or any player. We try to, as much as they can handle, that we're going to continue to put more on their plate. And so if he were on our football team and he showed a great skill at one position and was starting to really do well in his conditioning, and it didn't fall off and it didn't drop, we would be open to playing everybody that we had at more than one position. Anything that would help the football team, I would be all in favor of.
Does he have to have a primary position?
Well, I think to improve, I think there has to be a primary focus, just to be able to get some of the details that are going to be required at this league. So, we'll see once everybody's on our football team where they end up playing or where they end up starting out and practicing.
Mike, there's a report about Diggs that he could be ready for week 1. As far as your evaluation of him, what's a realistic timeline for him to be ready?
Try to stay away from timelines and predictions. I know that he's working hard to get back, which is exciting. I think it's, by all accounts, everything is on schedule, and we feel good about where his rehab is and what he's doing. But I think with any injury, I'm never going to put a timeline on it. I don't think it's fair, to the players. What one person's MCL injury may be is not the same as another player's injury, that everybody recovers differently. So as long as they're working hard to get back with every injury, that's all we can ask of them. And I just don't think it's fair to put a timeline on it.
Mike, Stephon described that visit as a kind of get-to-know-you process. What did you learn about him in the day and that you spent together?
All the things that we've talked about before, just his presence, the energy, the knowledge of the game, his ability to talk through things and talk through his rehab and his plan and how he prepares for the game, how he the relationship with the quarterback and all those things that we've worked through over the course of a couple days. And again, it was an easy visit. The conversations were easy. Nothing was forced. And so looking forward to moving with him on our roster.
Mike, at number 4 overall, will you guys wait and need, or is it just all about taking the best player available?
Well, I just think you have to be careful. Hopefully those two things can come together and align when you're drafting. But we certainly want to add premium players at the top of the draft and throughout the draft. That's our goal.
Mike, you guys like some leaders from last year ago between David Andrews, Jonathan Jones, Dietrich Wise, and Juwan Bentley. What do you envision the leadership in the locker room like?
I think that there's going to be opportunities for everybody. Whatever, if they've been in the league 8 or 9 years, or they've been in the league 1 or 2 years, there'll be some rookies. There'll be plenty of opportunities for guys to lead and create a new identity for us and his football team moving forward.
Mike, especially with David, considering the scheme going back to McDaniels and he's been in it, why not give him the opportunity to see if he could come back and earn a spot on the team?
We felt like that was the best decision for us. We thank David for his contributions and what he's done, and thought it was best for our football team that we move on, and we're excited about the guys that we got up front. We were able to add Garrett Bradbury, and Cole's worked hard at center the last couple weeks of the season, which he did and played there, and it's pretty impressive considering he hadn't spent a bunch of time there.
Will you keep Cole at center? Is that the plan?
I think he'll work on the interior 3, but I think to give him an opportunity to compete at center and build off of what he did at the end of last year.
Mike, how much of the guys that Ben mentioned that you guys decided not to bring back, were those all individual football decisions, or collectively did you feel like you need a culture reset in that locker room?
No, I think those are all individual decisions. I think that something that happens. The captaincy is not a 4-year term. It's not an 8-year term. It's a year-to-year term, and every player has to prove themselves each and every day to the football team. And again, there were some veteran players that have done a lot of great things, and it was just, individual decisions. Some of those other players went and moved on to another football team. Some we had decisions that we made. So that's just all part of the roster construction.
Mike, how important is it to build that core of young players in this draft? 3, 4 guys were long-term contributors. Last year, it's kind of an X factor as to how many guys. The previous year, not a lot of guys. You don't have.
It's tough, buddy. It catches up with you. It catches up. If you don't draft well, it catches up with you. You got to chase in free agency, and you got to be perfect. And so, the draft is critical, right? To be able to find players that fit a role. And you develop them, and then you decide to retain them and build through the draft because you know the person and the player can really excel in your program and what you believe in. So you got to draft well. If not, it catches up with you.
It can't be 1 guy a year, really, either, or 2 guys a year. It has to be. You can't get all 10 or whatever.
No, but you have to have the volume of that draft, or if you're going to go up for players. You got to be convicted on them because of the capital that it's going to cost you to go up and get them. Well, what I think we should not do and be careful of is there's a lot of different plays that you have to defend that the offense does well, and that particular play you have to defend it. It's also tough to defend Lamar Jackson when he runs the ball. So I'm all in favor of getting rid of those plays that are tough to defend, but we just try to focus on what the rules are and try to use them to our advantage.
Mike, where do things stand with Christian Barmore?
As far as
his availability.
well, he's by all accounts, I think going to participate in the voluntary off-season program. Voluntarily be there. This is my point, to see how many times I can say the word voluntarily in a 30-second hit. But I write a letter voluntarily to the players and making sure that they voluntarily read it and voluntarily show up. No. He came in with an energy. He popped in the other day to see the doctors. And I knew Christian from when I saw him at Alabama. Haven't really had any interaction with him. And when he walked into the training room, all the trainers and just his energy and presence, so I know that he's feeling better. We'll continue to evaluate him. It's something very serious. We take the health of our players extremely serious, especially when you're talking about something like blood clots. And we're going to have a great plan for him. We're going to do right by him, whatever is necessary, however we can get him to help us, based on days of practice, based on everything that he needs. And we don't have that plan yet, but we're continuing to work through it.
Mike, you mentioned Caden Wallace on the first answer, and he was interesting last year because he played mostly right tackle at Penn State. They sort of played him both sides, and then he had the injury.
Yeah, he got hurt. And I think by all accounts, you try to, offensive linemen really can't play special teams, right? They're not a contributor. You're a tight end, you got a running back, you got a linebacker. Some of these young players, they can get their feet wet, they can develop on special teams, gain the confidence going out and doing those things on special teams. And Caden, they were trying to do that from the XL tight end. And he was doing a nice job. He was playing physical, doing a nice job, and then got injured. And by all accounts, worked extremely hard through that process to one, get back, but also to train while he was out. So looking forward to working with him. And again, we're only going to evaluate what we see going forward. We don't care how you got here. We just care what you do when you're here. So whatever they are coming in there, when we see them, we'll evaluate them, we'll work with them, and we'll try to have a role or a vision for him.
My one follow-up on him, is there any thought to just letting him stay at left just because he had never really played
Sure.
before?
I mean, that's something to consider. We're going to consider everything once we get everybody in the building and figure out what's best for the player and what's best for the team.
Speaking of tight end, what do you think of Tyler Warren? I say just build the whole offense out of tight ends.
But how many tight ends can we play, right? I think
those guys aren't young that you have.
No, I mean, I think that we would love to add as many good football players or have the play style, and you certainly watch Tyler and his play style and his demeanor, and having met with him at the combine, I think he's a wonderful prospect. And I'm all for playing and acquiring as many tight ends as we can possibly get. So sign me up. Bring me as many good tight ends as you have out there, Tommy, and we'll find them something to do.
With Juwan Bentley, what went into the decision to release him?
These are difficult decisions, Doug, and players that have been here for a while and made great contributions to the football team before I was here. And so that I know that the Kraft family and the organization appreciate everything that they did. But these are decisions that we don't take lightly. And these are tough personnel decisions that we have to make. Once we come to that conclusion, we'd be as honest and direct to the player that we can, thank them, and that's what we did with Juwan.
We'll talk about Caden. Layden Robinson last year sort of started at right, finished at left guard. Where do you view him? Will you stick him at one spot to start this?
I do think for for some of these interior offensive linemen, it's critical that there is a level of versatility, that they can play multiple sides. It's just tough to be so specialized, and we'll give an opportunity to compete. But I do think for some of the interior players, and again, you're going to have to evaluate who the swing tackle is, and some of those guys during the game that can cross-train and be at the left side and the right side. And so Layden was able to get some quality snaps last year, had some good snaps on tape, had some snaps that he'd like to have back that he can improve on. But there has to be some versatility inside once you start getting to the games.
Mike, I know you mentioned kind of half joking, give me as many tight ends as you get. April 7th is coming up and even to implement the new offense with Josh. Do you have a better vision of what that offense will look like given the additions you've had in free agency and the rosters mostly put together?
I mean, I think we're so far from game planning right now. I think we're just putting the base stuff and putting what we believe in as far as the way that we want to play, the style, the things that I believe in, playing with the technique and all the details to the play. So we're not going to overload guys. We've got time. We really want to make sure that we're starting this thing off the right way and don't assume that they know anything about our system or our style. But it'll always be multiple, just like it was. I mean, there's going to be, opportunities for, 2 backs in the backfield, for multiple tight ends on the field, having with 3 wide receivers and, talk about the run game. I think being able to have some multiplicity and not just get married to one particular style, I think is important. But we always want to be able to create some conflict with the defense and have multiple ways to do that, whether that's going on the ball, whether that's being able to shift in motion. And again, once we see what our players can handle, I think that's the level to which we take the offense, and how quickly we do it is on them.
Mike, is the plan to go with Spillane at Mike linebacker, sort of like a green dot guy, and what do you like about him?
Well, a lot of production. I love the person, love what he's about, but a lot of production. A lot in the last couple years. I think his ability to get his hands on the football and passing game is something that we valued. His ability to play 3 downs. He did that for Vegas. Is something that is critical. And we haven't passed out the helmets with the headgear, head system, coach the quarterback yet. So I don't know where that's going to fall, but I would imagine that he'd be one of the players that we would consider to be able to do that.
This might be kind of a dumb question, but go back to the offense.
Like the rest of these questions.
The Patriots have never had a passing game coordinator, so I'm just kind of curious how the logistics of that work. Does Thomas kind of draw pass plays, bring them to Josh, or how do you envision that working?
Yeah, that system has been pretty fluid here with Thomas and Todd Downing and Josh. Those guys have worked together well with Ashton Grant. It's good to have some outside eyes on the system and the scheme, and as Josh's offense has kind of evolved, it kind of gets added on at the bottom. And I think what Thomas can do with Todd is kind of look and get things cleaned up and put it in more of a bucket, and being able to be a coach that's learning it, how they would be able to teach it, right? I think that's something that we always want to look at, is how will we teach this to the players? What's the best way to get this across to the players? Having fresh set of eyes with Thomas and Todd and Ashton or Tony Dews allows them to say, hey, Josh, let's clean up this, or this is how we did it with the Rams, or this is how we did it with the Jets, or this is how we did it with other places. And then they go through this process, and we sit in there and we look, and we can call this, we call this family here. We got all our in breakers, we got all our 3-man concepts, or whatever it may be. It's allowed, I think, for it to get cleaned up a little bit, and just having those communications where maybe it was Josh took it for granted. These new coaches are like, I think it can hit the player's brain a little better this way, or here's how I would like to coach it, and they've been able to clean it up.
Mike, how's the meshing gone so far between your coaching group and the people that you're familiar with, and Elliot Wolf and the vision for a player? Say you have Diggs in, everybody talks to him, and